Good evening, everyone, and good evening. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tonight is Woke Wednesdays. We do this every single Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And tonight we have a phenomenal guest on the show. Look at this. And we have a very important topic to address, human trafficking. So would you like to introduce yourself, tell the people who you are?
Hello, everyone. IG World. Thank you so much for having me. And
absolutely.
It's a pleasure being here on Woke Wednesday. So hello to your listeners, your fans, your viewers. My name is Laverne Deer. I am an advocate. I am the founder of Female Development World Organization. It is an organization that was founded to assist young girls, the development of girls. We focus on a holistic development, and when I say holistic development, issues that affects girls. So let's say a girl wants to play sports. The organization was found around athletics, health and wellness, social development, and education. So if you have someone who wants to play sports, they need to understand, the various phases of how to take care of yourself. They need to understand the education piece if you want to get a scholarship and so forth. So we formed the organization around those because we know that there's always issues that affects the development of girls. The organization was started 6 years ago. We've done some great things, including helping the Jamaica national women's soccer team to become the first Caribbean nation to qualify for the World Cup.
Absolutely.
Go Reggae Girls!
Absolutely, that's beautiful.
And then we've also worked with Florida legislators to propose bills and legislation for around human trafficking.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Ms. Laverne is obviously just a mountain of knowledge, and tonight we're going to unpack a lot of things. And just in case you don't know, I also tagged both her and the organization that she founded in the promo video for today. So please follow her page. Please support everything that she's doing. It's amazing. She's a local grassroots organizer, activist, working for our communities and in our communities. So let's kind of start at the basics. What is human trafficking?
So human trafficking is entails the force, coercion of someone, right? So, and I'm keeping it basic because as we were talking before, you were saying that you yourself don't even understand what that is. And force or coercion for someone through whether it's labor trafficking or sexual exploitation. As you know, sexual exploitation, you have the underage, such as a lot of people think that if you are a sex worker and you're a child, then you're prostituting, and it's not trafficking, but a child cannot consent. So of course that child underage, that is considered sexual exploitation. And of course forced labor, what that means is someone who brings you in. Let's say you're from another country and they bring you here and promise you work, and then you come here and then there is no work, but you now need to pay for the expense of them bringing you here. So now they put you into this forced labor, where you're now into domestic servitude, and you are now obligated to where you work, but you give the money to them, and you don't get to keep anything. And then before you know it, it now becomes a lifestyle habit, and if you try to get out of it, it now becomes force, and where there is violence and all of that entailed.
Now, a lot of people, I think, tend to think that human trafficking happens only in other countries, and maybe developing countries, maybe countries that are a little bit more poor. That's a myth, right? Mm-hmm. So where does human trafficking happen?
So human trafficking happens right here, right in our backyard. In fact, the National Human Trafficking Hotline, they have reported the, hold on, give you the statistics right now.
There you go.
Florida is actually number 3 in the amount of cases reported in human trafficking, right? Of course.
So in the country?
Huh?
In the country.
Right here in the U.S.
Wow.
Yeah, right here in the U.S. So you have number 1, you have California, then you have Texas, and then you have Florida, which is number 3. Florida being number 3, when people think that, okay, it doesn't happen here, then why is it that our states, this Sunshine State is one of the states that have the most reporting. In recent, about 2 years ago, in the city of Miramar, someone was arrested for prostituting a young girl They were in the car waiting for the girl, and the girl was in there. Now, when these girls come out, this individual charges $75 per girl. This is an underage girl. So, and this is in the city of Miramar, which is the neighboring city to where we are.
10 minutes from here.
Yes, exactly. So it is not something that happens, you know, in Asia, as most people think. It happens right here, and is why our organization and our group have chose to work with Florida legislators to propose legislation around awareness and prevention, because a lot of people do not understand that it is a problem right here.
Absolutely. We have a quick comment from Tamanisha. California gets a lot of labor traffickers. Florida also gets a lot, and it was only a few years ago that they put up informational flyers in the bathrooms and women bathrooms, since most trafficked are young in Miami are young women. So
Yes.
so even only just recently, Tamanisha saying that this started to become
Yes,
a thing.
and it's really isn't yes, the signs are there, but if you think about it, how many people actually
Agreed. Yeah.
pay attention to these signs,
Yeah.
right? So the signs are there to educate people, and yes, I understand that we're coming a long way. What we did to even take it a step further, we are proposing this past legislative session, we propose for them to include it in the curriculum in schools. So now we want our children educated. There is a study that showed that 95% of abuse can be prevented through education. If I know something, I'm more than likely not going to put myself into that, right? And when you think about our children spend most of their time the day in schools and away from their parents. So if you educate them, yes, the signs are there in the bathroom, the airports, and so forth. But if they're in schools and now if they have their health class, and you're now telling them about, you know, what are some of the signs that you should look for if someone comes up and they, you know, they're a pretender. How do I know that they're really pretending? How do I know that they're really? So these are things that we want to educate the children in schools, so this way they themselves can protect themselves from these perpetrators.
Gotcha. Tamanisha saying real quick that that was another thing that there had to be a fight to even translate the flyers into different languages, especially in a city like Miami that is very diverse with Spanish and Creole.
Exactly.
Being big
And
things.
you know, I'm so glad for this platform and for your viewer to be bringing up this point, because one of the things that we realized when we were advocating for this bill, that a lot of people were not there supporting. And they weren't supporting it because they don't understand the dynamics of it. Now, why do we have to fight with our legislators to put this education in school? Why do that even need to be a second thought? That should just be something that's automatic, right?
Yeah.
Thankfully, Miami-Dade County Public Schools, they themselves has adopted a policy where they, whether it passed in the state or not, which it didn't, they themselves are now going to look into implementing it within Dade County Public Schools. So that is a big move in itself.
Gotcha. Now, you mentioned a little bit about a language of a pretender. There are different categories that you can kind of put traffickers in, right? So pretender, there's a
You mean
provider.
the perpetrator?
Yeah, the perpetrator.
Yeah.
So what are some of those categories that maybe people can kind of look out for?
So the pretending, right? The perpetrator, some of the signs that they look for, say someone who pretends to be someone that they're not.
So maybe I'm their uncle or
the uncle. Well, not even the
father or
uncle, but
something.
let's say, and I always try to revert to children because my focus is on children. But let's say someone comes up to them, and a lot of these children who become victims of trafficking, the Department of Children and Family did a study that showed that children who have been sexually exploited have suffered multiple childhood trauma. One of those traumas are child sexual abuse. Child sexual abuse is a big issue within the homes, where a lot of times this is happening with the uncles or the stepfathers, right? So when you have these children that go out there now, they're already dealing with this low self-esteem from this trauma that they're dealing with. They now have this person that comes up to them that has been, looking and watching, because a lot of times they watch these individuals, sometimes months, years. They watch their pattern, they watch their movement, they watch their self-esteem. they will come up and they will pretend to be, you know, the boyfriend that this girl, let's say, is so yearning for love, for somebody to love them. So they come up and, you know, they pretend to be this caring, warm, affectionate. Why? Because they see that this is what this individual is lacking. They see it in the demeanor.
So therefore, a manipulator.
Yes, exactly. The provider is someone who, you know, promises that I can provide for you. A lot of times you see these young girls with these nice, beautiful purses and these phones, and, you know, if the mother can't afford it, where are they getting it from? So these are some of the things too that, you know, you need to look for. A lot of times when I do my community outreach, I tell parents, tell your children you love them. I even ask the question, when was the last time you told your child that you love them? Because a lot of time parents just feel that, well, I'm putting food on the table. You know, I'm paying for rent. I have a roof over your head. What more do you want? Right?
No, yeah, that's a great point.
Exactly.
So one thing that we saw in the R. Kelly documentaries was that it was a lot of these kind of girls whose parents weren't really saying that type of stuff to them, and sometimes parents seem so disconnected from their children. In one case, I think one of the little, like, R. Kelly would say, hey, just come here to talk to me, and the parents would just let them. They're kind of very careless.
So you think about it, and a lot of times I'm very careful in blaming parents as well, because parents themselves were also victims and survivors. So they now are trying to cope with, okay, I had my trauma that I had to deal with as a child. Nobody helped me to deal with that. I'm still struggling mentally.
That's a good point.
I still can't sleep at night. I'm still having issues with even being in a safe relationship. Then how am I going to make this so perfect for my child?
That's a great point.
Right?
Yeah.
So you have broken parents, just like you have broken homes. You have broken parents who are now trying to do their best with these kids. You know, you talk about the parents with R. Kelly. What would make a parent, you know, want to push their child out there? Well, a lot of times these parents see these children or see themselves living through these children. So maybe they wanted fame and they couldn't get the fame they wanted. They now see that they have this beautiful child. This child is an opportunity. But if you think about it, is that trafficking also? Are these parents now trafficking their own children?
Are they complicit in it? Yeah. No, these are tough questions.
But they don't think about it because maybe they don't understand the action of what they're doing. You know, so a lot of times it's deeper than just say, okay, I'm going to blame the parent. Because the parent may also be having issues themselves.
On. A lot of moving parts.
Exactly.
Now, I had a friend one time tell me that she doesn't go to certain parts of Miami at certain times because she's scared that she'll get trafficked. Because she's heard stuff about it. I think she was talking about somewhere down south in Miami. Now, who are the people who get trafficked usually? Because I think when I think of human trafficking, I'm coming from a very ignorant standpoint. I think sometimes it's someone getting abducted and being taken away. Like,
no, that is true. But again, remember when I talked about someone who may be looking for love, and you may see this person as, okay, she's looking for love. I'm going to provide the love for her. But it is not, I'm not loving you because I love you. I am loving you now because I want to gain your trust. I want to bring you in. I want you to move in with me.
It's not love.
It's not love. And this is now, I get you to come in with me. You know, I groom you to how I want you. And a trafficker can make up to $250,000 per year per person. So if you think about this, is
per
a
year,
one per year.
Person.
This is a $150 billion industry. There is money.
Say that again.
$150 billion industry. Yes. Yes. And if you think about it, when I gave you those numbers, right? So $75 per child, per that one child for what, maybe 10, 15 minutes, an hour. How much can you reuse that child to make money for that one night, right? So if you think about it and how much it adds up, yes. And then if you want to talk about the industry and where the money is coming from, I always say follow the money. Look at the Jeffrey Epstein, one of the biggest, most wealthiest, powerful man. You see that on the news now.
And I believe his case was a lot of attention was brought to it here in Miami because I believe one of his representatives was Alex Acosta, the dean of the law school at my university, at FIU, Florida International University. So that was a big situation.
You said that he was the dean?
Alex Acosta was, I'm pretty sure that, and please fact check me, the dean of the law school at Florida International University.
Wow.
So there were a lot of articles that kind of came out, I believe a couple of years ago.
Yes.
So I believe he just stepped down from Trump's cabinet.
Yes, he did.
With all this information being released.
Yes, he did.
So a lot of people need to be held accountable.
Oh yes, of course, and I'm extremely happy. In fact, when we did a press conference at the state capitol in April, and I referenced the Jeffrey Epstein because when you have the people with power, people tend to keep their mouths shut. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to offend people, right?
But we don't want to get them in trouble, right?
There you go. Yeah. There you go. But the pimp on the street, that person get busted. They're the ones who you throw them in jail and throw away the key.
Yeah.
And you'll talk about that left, right, and center.
Meanwhile, they're more of a pawn in this.
They are the bottom man.
Yeah,
they are the bottom. They are the bottom. Yes.
Now, the Super Bowl is coming to Miami this coming year. Can we talk a little bit about how sports events, because I just learned this recently, how there seems to be kind of like a surge in human trafficking
around sports. Well, again, I talk about the money and the power, right? And as we're talking and we're talking about the victim, let's not forget about the buyers, right? Supply and demand. If there wasn't a demand, you wouldn't need to supply a young lady. Then you have the sports, where sports entail the egotistic, you feed in the ego of these men with money, and what feeds their ego better than sex, right? Yeah. And then you have these young ladies who, because of the power and the fame, they, may be forced into that type of they are forced into that type of activity. But a lot of times people think it's okay because, and I forgot the name of the footballer that was actually busted recently. Oh my God, I can't believe his name is, I can't to say it, but yeah. They are the ones who, this is their lifestyle, right? So here I was reading, there's a study that was done by Demand Abolition. Buyers, right? 16% of men in the U.S. pays for sex. Sex buyers were less likely to be married, men, right?
It's usually single men who are.
But if they were married, they were less likely to be happily married.
I would imagine so. Yeah.
Right. So you see a lot more men that goes to these sporting activities, right?
But there also seems to be a component of pedophilia, right, in all of this.
Oh, of course, yes. I mean, most definitely. Yeah. There's the children piece and the sickness. I call it a mind sickness, because anybody who wants to sit and watch pornography of young kids, then that's a sickness. I call that a mental sickness. Yeah. But all of these, stem around the sporting events, because you have, and it's happening in the city of Miami Gardens.
Oh yeah.
So you have people that comes from all over the world, and then you have the organized groups who they now provide these beautiful young girls to these men who, they request after a game or whatever, they request these young ladies, and you have a group that will provide it. In Atlanta, there was a huge bust with the last, right? Yep. So why do you think Miami is going to be any different? Absolutely. And not only we're hosting it in Miami, and then I believe the next one will be in Tampa. So we're having 2 in the state of Florida. Florida is already considered number 3 in the reported case of human trafficking. So if everybody's not keeping their eyes open now, I don't know when you're going to open your eyes to know and to understand that the sporting arena is a breeding ground for this, and we have 2 back-to-back that's coming here. So if you're in your local cities, you need to find out from your local law enforcement, your local elected officials, ask the question, what are you going to be doing to protect us? What are you going to be doing to protect our beautiful city?
Now, wow. So why do you think some of the reasons that people just don't know this is happening in their own backyards? Because if this is really common. But
it is.
Where is the disconnect here?
It is, but again, lack of knowledge. People don't understand, and is why the bill that we proposed was geared around awareness. So part of the bill is not that we proposed was not just around the education curriculum in schools. It is also about now asking the state to have increased PSAs, public service announcement, where now parents who are not in school, so while we're educating the kids in school, we're now having, you can be on the television and you're now seeing someone saying, you know, are you aware of this area? Well, Homestead as one of the places you mentioned, Opalaka, these various places. You target these messages around these areas where you know that at a certain time the parents are watching television or people are watching television, and you infiltrate these messages, these PSAs. So now you educate the entire community. Another piece of the bill that we talked about was the reporting. How much people can go, and can you as a reporter, right, that you have this platform, is there somewhere locally that you can go in the local community and pull up statistics on trafficking? No, right? It's not. We depend on the National Human Trafficking Hotline, but yet if we need to know the numbers in Dade County, if we need to know the numbers in Homestead, where do we go for that information? Where do I go for the information within the city that I live in? There is no such centralized place.
And that's what your bill is kind of proposing.
And that's one of the area where the bill was proposing. So it's the 3-prong is educating our kids, educating the community, and support law enforcement by having a centralized place where we can house the information so we can use that statistic and data to make change.
Now, I have to ask you this too, because I wonder how many of these children come, or I don't know if you know this, come either from poor communities or children of color in these scenarios.
So I focus a lot of my outreach within the grassroots community, and that's within the community of color, right? The minorities. And I give you a perfect example. When we were working with the bill, I met someone who was working with DCF, and they were completely against my proposal for the PSA. And the reason that they said that is, well, DCF already does PSA. So my response to her was, well, I don't see it in my community.
Real quick, DCF, what's DCF? Just for the people.
Department of Children and Families.
Okay, cool. I'm not sure if everybody knows the acronym.
Yeah. I don't see those in my community. Where is that information? The young girl that I mentioned in Miramar, that was a black young girl. Does that young girl understand and know? Have they seen any of those PSAs? Yes, there is a large number, and I don't have my statistics. One of my program director, I specifically asked her was to do some research on people of color and the children as well as the pimps, that to see, you know, what are the color, and I guess I shouldn't use the word color, but what is the ethnicity of these victims and where they're from. And I have that information, I just don't have it in front of me. But yes, minority is strongly affected. There is, I went to an event recently, and one of the speakers were seeing that there was a study that was done that showed 40% of girls that are trafficked are of African American descent. That is a very large number.
And I asked that not to dismiss what happens in white communities, but because also these tend to be even more vulnerable populations.
Yes. Well, if you think about it, our young African American girls are from homes where you may have the parent that are working 2 to 3 jobs and cannot afford
poverty.
There you go. Cannot afford to, you know, give them the nice things. And when you're in school and you're around your peers and you see that your peers are looking good and you're not, if someone comes up to you and offer you something, you're gonna more think about the peer pressure, and you're going to accept that. And before you know it, you find yourself into that. So yes, the poverty level plays a big role.
That makes us all vulnerable.
Yes.
Poverty, absolutely.
Yes.
Now I wonder if you have any research on the the role of social media, because now with social media, maybe like 15 years ago, like there was less access to the amount of kids that people had. So now I'm assuming, this is just a guess, with social media, these human traffickers and people can just grab children even quicker.
Yes. And as we say that we're going to just keep it as basic as possible. I know a young girl who, and a lot of parents are guilty of this. Underage, this child was maybe about 10, 11, and that this individual had a Facebook account at that age. I believe the legal age for Facebook is like 13 I believe 13 to 15, somewhere around there.
Anyone can lie.
I'm saying for kids, there's a reason why you want to keep children off of that.
Right. I was just saying that kids could also lie and say they're
right about their age. Yes. Right. But the point that I was trying to make is when I said to the parent, are you monitoring that child's activity? And so, she's fine, I don't have to worry about it. Before you know it, the individual start having mental issues, self-esteem issues, and to find out that this person was also being targeted online. So, and if you think about it, even as grown folks, right? So they go on social media, and if they don't get a certain amount of likes, they feel as though, their page isn't doing well. And so they do things for the likes.
Yeah.
So you have a young person now, and that person is not getting, they're looking for all the likes and this attention, and they're not getting it. And then all of a sudden somebody just comes on and just, start interacting in their page right there. It's over.
It's over. Real quick, Tommy just said, I saw that on a show once that was discussing how sometimes it takes a while for the situation to be highlighted due to the runaway label. So same for Latino women, Native women, because of federal versus reservation law. So I guess she's saying that sometimes kids are just labeled as runaway as opposed to victims of...
The runaway is a big issue, and a lot of the when I talked about that study that the DCF did, they find that there was a lot of underreporting, and there was a lot of the children that were being sexually exploited were being neglected or ignored because they were being considered runaways. And they weren't looking into the fact that a lot of these kids that even are considered runaways, a possibility of being kidnapped as well and being forced into this. So yes, there's definitely a lot of attention that we need to put around that. Most definitely, that is a huge problem.
And even me being the person I am, I'm a very political person, and to me, the United States is a human trafficker as well. We can begin with slavery. We can begin with
modern day slavery,
right?
Yes.
So these are different ways of human trafficking. The trafficking of human beings is not a foreign notion to the United States.
It's not. It's there is power and there's money here, right? And as we go back to the Jeffrey Epstein, when you have the powerful man that this person is around, the easy access to money, they use their power and their money for sex, and they engage in it, and they're not afraid to even say it. Put our very own leader of this country out there, and he's not afraid to publicly, by all means, and still stood by Acosta even after everything became public, and standing by Jeffrey Epstein, stating that he's a great man and he likes young girls. Okay.
Even what was the other guy from Alabama? Ron, the guy from Alabama. Because this is an interesting thing. The guy, I forgot his name. Ron something from Alabama. I think that was his name. Women were stepping up to protect him. Because he was, men will be men. They like girls.
Yes. And let's talk about women stepping in to protect, right? So why do women step in to protect these powerful men? Why? That is still something I'm still trying to figure out. Why would a woman, understanding that women are being affected by this, why would you support these men that do that? Well, again, I can't speak for the ignorance of these women, but this is something that we definitely need now to start doing these PSAs, to start educating these very same women, because it's got to be ignorance. If you blatantly know that this person is talking about grabbing a woman by the part of her anatomy, and you are still willing to stand there and support that and not looking at how that individual may feel violated, then I have an issue with another woman supporting that individual.
It's amazing. Even watching the R. Kelly documentary, the amount of people that still, stand.
I was a diehard R. Kelly fan. I was a diehard R. Kelly fan, but he lost me with the Aaliyah situation back way back then.
But a number.
He lost me with that. I stopped listening to his music. I stopped completely, and so power, fame. This is a man who, through his music, has changed a lot of people's lives. Because they can relate to a certain situation. They'll tell you, oh, it's R. Kelly's music that, made me this or made me that. Yeah. But yes, he may be a talented individual, but he's also a sick individual as well.
He's also a survivor of sexual assault.
And he's also a survivor. Again, one broken parents teaching. So I'm so glad that you brought that up, because when you look at his trauma that he has gone through, and his trauma, you can understand why he does the controlling things, because he lost his control, and then now he's finding that with controlling these young women. So again, the sick and the sick, now we're trusting with our children.
I believe most folks who actually commit these acts of sexual violence are themselves victims and or survivors.
Some of them, yes. Some of them you can say are. And some knows better and get help. Yeah. There are people who have gone through it and they've gotten help.
Now let me ask you this, because I think when we talk about human trafficking, the conversation tends to be focused more about girls, because I think that's the most demographic that are trafficked.
Girls.
But boys can also be trafficked too.
True. Boys can boys are. I'm trying to find some information that I had here.
I think most people who are trafficked are, women or girls.
No, it is. The higher percentage are actually girls. 96% of
the reported cases.
Reported cases are females, and 50%. Children making up 50% of that number.
Wow.
So yes, boys are as well, and you have to look at this too, because you have a lot of boys who were sexually abused themselves, and they themselves are dealing with that trauma, and a lot of times people tend to think that, if a boy's being trafficked, he's gay. So they put them into this category, and how people can be very homophobic. So right away, that just dismissed the fact that,
especially in Caribbean and Latin cultures, homophobia runs deep.
Yes. But boys are victims of trafficking as well, and that is an area that also needs to be looked into.
Absolutely.
My organization was founded around girls. Does that mean that if issues around boys comes up that we won't deal with it? Yes, we will, because boys are also victims as well. But what I encourage more male individuals to do is to get involved. Go out and get involved in your communities. Become role models. Right? Because even when you have the children, the young boys who are sexually abused, and let's say a young boy was sexually abused. That's one of the hardest things. You're more than likely, if you're a boy, you're abused, you're not going to say anything to anyone.
I gotta be a man. I can't say anything.
Yes, I can't say anything. So, you have this, and then you also have to look at the suicidal rate, and, those are things that is high within boys as well that are trafficked, and it's a whole dynamics. And then you look at the drug epidemic that we have, and all of that. It all stems to the trauma that individuals are dealing with.
Now, you mentioned something before the show that was very striking to me, and you said that a lot of children don't even realize they're being trafficked until after.
Yes.
If they're lucky enough even to make it out.
Yes, if they're lucky to make it out.
Can you kind of like unpack that a little bit more?
So one of the members, and I'll use her story as an example. One of the members within our group, beautiful lady, met her. She spoke at one of our events. And it wasn't until recently that we started having the conversation, because now she's been in our organization volunteering with us now for a couple of years. And we're talking, and it's almost like the light went on. And she's like, oh my God, I was trafficked when I was a teenager. My dad trafficked me when I was a teenager. And I said, huh, what happened? So when she started telling me about her coming into this country as a teenager, as a very young teenager, she was placed to work in a drug house. And her job was to be there, to be that face, because of course, if you have a child there and the house is raided, more than likely the child will not, they will get a buy. But she realized that all the time that she was there, even when she did not want to do it, she was being forced by her parent to do it. And she would go to school, and as soon as she couldn't even go out and play with her friends, go to school, come home, and she's right there in that post. And she had no idea what she was doing, because it was her family, it was her father, thought that she was being protected. She had a roof over her head, she couldn't get out. And then all of a sudden now she realized that, oh wow, I was being forced into this labor, because this was not something that I wanted to do. And this was something that I couldn't have consented. So she had no idea that she was being trafficked until now, as a grown woman, the light went on and realized.
So you're saying that trafficking isn't just sexual trafficking.
No, it's
trafficking
labor.
Can happen as long as this is labor.
It's labor.
That's an important
it could be labor,
right?
And then there's also organ trafficking as well.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people end up missing, and then their organs are stolen. That's another area that we can talk about. We can talk about that on another show.
Yeah.
But these are the various different types of trafficking. Yes.
Wow. I'm trying to take all this in. I'm just learning a lot right now.
Yes.
So what are some things that maybe we can do more actively? But I did have one more question before we kind of start wrapping up. And one important thing to kind of say is that these are the only reported cases that we have. Correct? Like the statistics that we have, like the demographic information that we have. It's all based on things that have been reported
to the National Human Trafficking Hotline.
And just like sexual assaults, a lot of sexual assaults go unreported. So I also wonder, people who are undocumented in this country, I'm sure those cases we really don't know anything about.
No, you don't. There's a huge, and we understand that there's a huge underreporting. And this is, again, I keep coming back to the bill, because when I put my thought process around that bill, I looked at all of this, and the reporting piece is key. Because if, let's say you may not know of that there's a national human trafficking hotline. You may not know of that.
I had no idea until you mentioned it today.
Oh, you had no idea, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. But if you knew that there was a number, a 305 number that you can relate to, then you will more than likely call that number.
Absolutely.
Right? We still also have to look at the system of the reporting process. A young lady called me this week, reached out to me this week, and said that I know someone who's being trafficked, and I know the perpetrators. And I said to them, okay, did you call the hotline? She stated, yes, I called the hotline, but they told me it's an adult, so they can't help them. So then they told them, okay, well, they didn't even give them any alternative what to do. So the person ended up calling the police. Call the police. Oh, it's an adult, and the parents doesn't live here, and we don't, we can't do it. So they gave them the number for Crime Stoppers. So all of this, how many lives have we maybe lost already because we don't have a centralized?
And people don't even like calling nowadays. So on the third, fourth call, they're like, I'm done. Yeah.
Right. People have their phone now. There is so many other ways that we can sit down and look at. Okay, texting. Is there an app? I mean, and I know that there are people out there that are looking at the various apps and what they can do for this. But right now, the reporting is an issue. It's a big issue, and it's something that we need to do something about.
And now that I think about it, even like in prisons or juvenile detention centers, ICE concentration camps,
yes,
I'm sure all these things also go.
Oh, of course.
And yes. I'm sure people are also less likely, well, I know that people are less likely, these officers are less likely to believe women and girls. When they do finally report, hey, there's a stalker, hey, I've been assaulted, oh, well, just don't worry about it. Because this happens.
It does happen, and this is where coming in now and educating the community.
Yeah.
The community needs to understand. And how do you educate the community? Well, you're doing your part because you have a platform, and you're now extending that platform to topics such as this, right? Yeah. But let's say the person who may be sitting in their office at work. What can you do? Everybody right now should be doing or thinking, what can I do? How can I get involved?
Absolutely.
Well, the first thing that you want to do is find out from your local elected official, what are they doing?
Yeah.
And you talk about the politics piece and that, you're very into that. Well, let's talk about now educating our community on their power that they have as an individual to stop this. Because if me as a regular individual out there, and I'm proposing this bill, and I'm out there talking till I'm done, and I'm not hearing that elected official, well, you know what? When come time for that person to be reelected, that's where my power now is going to come in, because now I'm going to galvanize my friends, and I'm going to let them know, listen, when I was fighting for this issue that's affecting our community, this individual was not there. So we do not need to put him back in office. Let's vote him out.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great way to start kind of wrapping up. This is important. People have power. So what are some things that maybe you would suggest to folks that they kind of start doing? Voting, being informed, educating the community,
being involved,
taking care of your kids, telling your kids that you love them.
Yes. Oh, right? Good. You walked away with that.
I'm listening. Yeah, I'm listening.
That's the number one. Is telling your children that you love them. Parents, please, if you're not listening to anything else that I've said to you, go home tonight. If you have not told your child that you love them today, please promise me you will go home tonight and you will tell your child that you love them.
And also aunts, uncles, tias, tios, siblings.
Yes.
It takes a community.
It definitely takes a community to do that, and definitely to educate yourself on the topic. So the National Human Trafficking Hotline is, you can go on that online and you can see all of the statistics. One of the things that I also want to point out is, some of these businesses that are harboring this type of the labor trafficking and sex trafficking, the massage parlors, how many of these are around? And a lot of times, if you really think about it, you see some of these communities with these massage parlors opening late hours of night. Like, really, I really need to go in at 12 o'clock to go get a massage. Those are things that now, okay, let me open up my eyes. Why does this shop here is, harboring children, or I see kids that are coming in at all type of hours? This doesn't sound right. So become more aware. Become more aware of the situation, because even if it doesn't happen to you or your child, it could happen to your neighbor. And it takes a village. If we're going to really make a difference in this, it's going to take a village.
And not just aware, but also active.
Right? And to become active in it. So we're going to refile this bill. Right? We did it last legislative session, 2016, 2017, and the 2018, 2019, 2017, 2018, and 2018, 2019, we are going to file it again. This is where now we are going to ask everybody on social media to get involved and help rally behind us, even if you don't live here. Because part of the bill process is, right? So we propose a bill. There's a legislator that we work with. We propose the bill with them. They file the bill. That bill could sit there and go nowhere. But if you have the community that picks up their phone and call their representative and say, hey, I need you to hear that bill, or hey, I need you to do that, then that bill starts moving. Community now start getting engaged and active, and it's why I say we as a community need to understand the power that we possess, because that's how change is going to come. It's not going to come by, someone wearing a nice suit and sitting up at the Capitol or somewhere. It's going to take the grassroots movement to get these politicians to make the change that is needed. I shouldn't have to be begging, asking you to educate our children. I shouldn't have to be begging, asking you to educate our community. And I shouldn't have to beg you to ask you to support law enforcement by having a centralized location or centralized database for reporting of these statistics. It should just be a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So you as a community, please, 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 I ask you, get involved. Get involved, start learning. Google human trafficking.
Yeah.
Just start by that. Just Google it, and then from one thing leads to another. And then, of course, the human trafficking hotline is 1-888-373-7888.
I'm gonna make a post of that.
Yes, so you'll make a post, put a post,
put
that up there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Laverne, for being on the show. You have been just a wealth of knowledge. Thank you so much. I hope everyone learned something today. Goodness, this was just a lot to take in.
Most definitely.
Thank you so much.
Go to our website.
What's the website? Yeah.
FDWO.org. That is Female Development World Organization. The acronym for that, FDWO.org. We have a page on there that is just around human trafficking.
And there's also a link to your website from the Instagram page.
From the Instagram page,
so I'll be tagging her in this post tonight with putting the number up there because we need to be more active.
Yes, we
now,
need.
This hotline, it takes both adults and children.
Yes. Yes,
Just
it does.
Sure.
Yes, just call them if you have any suspicion at all. Just call. Let them tell you, don't worry about it. Which if they tell you don't worry about it and it's still bothering your spirit, worry about it and don't stop. Call the police. Just like I said, my friend did. She didn't just take what they told her. She went and she called the police. And then she didn't just take what the police did. She took and went another step just to ensure that she can sleep at night.
Do what you gotta do,
her part.
basically.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Ms. Laverne. You've been just
my pleasure, and thank you to your audience.
Absolutely.
And I look forward to every one of you now becoming more engaged. Keep your eyes and your ears open.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll see y'all next week.